Everybody, and thank you, Gertrude, for filling in that slot where we had technical issues. We'll dive right back into the discussion. And James, I want you to tell us about some of these external issues. Gertrude touched some of them. What are the external issues that board audit committees are dealing with in the present landscape? Very briefly.
All right, thank you very much. Eva, I will talk about, I know there are very many external factors out there, but I'll talk about three which can illustrate what we are talking about. One of them is really the IT risk. There are a lot of changes within the IT environment which can affect the work of an organization. So the audit committees need to be alert. For example, do you have defenses against cybersecurity? If somebody broke into your servers, hacked into your servers, that could cause a lot of problems, especially an organization actually, but of course it's worse for financial institutions because people could hack in and siphon money and move it out of other people's accounts. So I think issues around cybersecurity on the IT side is something that the audit committee should be alert about. You should always be, having conversation around that. What kind of defenses do you have? Do you have strong firewalls? Do you have people who can do what they call penetration tests just to make sure that somebody out there cannot crack into your system? And of course, this is not a simple thing. It's a serious area that you need to be discussing, and where possible, put a lot of investments to make sure that you are adequately protected. The other one is around social media. Social media these days can destroy companies, can destroy organizations. What are people saying out there, and what kind of information is going out from your organization? Do you have policies around how you respond in case of a crisis around your media, for example, if something went out which was not supposed to be communicated to the public without proper authorization, how do you deal with that? So that can be an area. So there are risks around the IT environment, cybersecurity and so forth. But also I would like us to talk about regulatory environment. As auditors, we should be concerned about what is happening in the regulatory environment, what is changing, because every now and then you get guidelines maybe from the regulators. If you're in a bank, for example, there will always be directives from the central bank on how things are going to be done. As audit committees serving in those areas, you should be monitoring what is happening in the regulatory environment. Because some of these changes can actually cause problems. Cause problems for the organization.
And I think what is live for us here and what we've even experienced today is the issues of technology, the growth of technology, the evolution of technology. Those are live issues that we are dealing with as externalities. But I want us to look at the internal audit point of view, the internal audit perspective. For you, Doreen, what are the areas that you see in as far as internal controls are concerned? What are some of the internal controls and measures, or internal measures and processes that audit committees are dealing with today? Both drawing from experience of your field in the energy sector or corporate sector and other sectors that you interact with.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eva, for the question. And I want to just pick up from where James left off. So the audit committees internally are mainly dealing with aspects around, like I earlier mentioned, governance, what is the quality of the leadership within the institutions where they are directors. They are dealing with issues of internal control, and they are also dealing with the issues of how we approach risk management. But just to break it down, these are usually sliced into three. It is the people that we have employed within the organization. So do we have the right skill of people? Do we have staff or employees within our organizations that appreciate the values that we have put within the organizations? Do we have people that understand and they are aligned to the culture within the organization, and they are aligned with the mission and vision of the organization. And are we upgrading those people? Are we training them? Are we making them better? And if they are off the track, what measures are we taking to either bring them back on track or exit them from the organization? The other piece that I would like to speak about is the systems, which is broadly about technology. What are the kind of systems we have in place? James has spoken about firewalls. I want to pick it from the role of the audit committee in terms of oversight over financial reporting. So how much can the audit committee rely on the information that is coming out of the systems within the organization? Is it that this information is being entered into the systems properly, it is being processed properly, and the output is what is expected and it is being used for the right reasons? Because if that is not happening, then the decisions that the audit committee is making is not going to be good for the organization. And then finally, I would like to talk about processes, which is basically guidance within the organization to our staff, to contractors, to suppliers on how we do things. So it is mainly guidance around how do we do procurement, how do staff behave, how do we go around the accounting process, how do we go about the IT processes. And that also includes change management. If we are changing a system, an IT system, are we doing it the right way? Because if we do not do it the right way, the challenges that we are going to have thereafter will be harder to undo than even the change itself that was brought on board. So there are a number of pressure points that come in from the internal perspective. And myself as an audit committee member or a chair of the audit committee, some of the things that I have seen happen is, first of all, the audit committee has to look at a number of things because of the dynamics and changes that we have talked about. So what they are asking the internal auditors and external auditors to do is to focus their reports on critical things, which if they did not go right, then there are going to be significant problems within the organization. The other thing that I have seen happen is audit committees asking the auditors or compliance officers or legal officers to actually expand the scope of the role of the reviews that they are doing so that they cover the emerging issues, the technological issues we have talked about, artificial intelligence, digital transformation, managing talent, and having the right people within the organization. They are also encouraging collaboration. I think it's Gertrude who talked about the 3 line roles. They're encouraging collaboration between the risk managers, internal auditors, external auditors, compliance officers, legal officers, and everybody within the organization. Because at the end of the day, we are all working for the same interest. And that is not only ending on the 3 line roles within the organization, but also at board level as well. The audit committee is collaborating with the risk committee of the board, with the HR committees to see that the critical risks that have been flagged are actually taken care of. I have also seen evaluations being done more frequently than they were done before. The audit committees and the boards are also taking a step back to find external evaluators to just look at the way that they are running organizations and take a call as to whether the audit committees and the boards are actually on track or not. So there are lots of things that the audit committees are doing internally to address the internal pressures. I cannot end this submission without talking about fraud. If people are not doing the right thing, if systems are not strong enough, then you will have lots of frauds happening. So the other encouragement that audit committees are doing is strengthening the whistleblowing process. So if there is anything that is not going right, the customers can shout out. Suppliers out there can shout out. Any interested party can shout out. Internal staff can shout out. So it's a combination of things, but I will close it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. And something now let's talk about what's happening in the public sector. I see the Q&A is a hive right now. The Q&A for this webinar is a hive. Everybody wants to know what's going on in the public sector, whether the growth in these trends is actually the same. So for me, I want to hear about what can be done to empower audit committees in the public sector to even play a much bigger role. We know they're playing a role and it's growing, to play a much bigger role in strengthening governance in these ministries, departments and agencies, and even local governments. If you could just give us some insights on that.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. Of course, audit committees in the government actually need a lot of improvement, and indeed a lot that can includes the following. In the current setting, the practice should see more engagement between individual governing bodies in these votes that are clustered together under their jurisdiction, so that they interact with them at that level and they make their value addition felt directly there, not through this long path through the Ministry of Finance. So the interactions need to be improved, but also governance itself. Audit committees are committees of a governing body, so to speak. So if you have a sector audit committee working for a governing body which has not been helped to govern the way it's written in terms of international best practices, it becomes not so much a conducive environment for these committees to function to the best of their potential. So that's another area we need to improve governance of these votes, if I may use the word vote, and improving governance meaning making them more structured, because right now they are really unstructured. Governance is at the mercy of those who are in charge, but there is no criteria, there are no processes which are calibrated that these people who are in the governance function are supposed to be seen to follow, so that they can evaluate themselves that, yes, I think now that we have complied with these best practices, I think we are governing what? Better. So there is too much intuition really as far as the governance is concerned. So to me, if that's the environment, audit committee cannot function better. But indeed government is doing efforts. Personally, I'm seeing it happen. Now we have a draft governance code. We also have developed a skills assessment matrix and a questionnaire to help us regularly check the skills, whether they are resonating with the strategic objectives of the institution that these governing bodies are in charge of. We have also developed a tool to monitor the performance of these governing bodies. So we believe if we improve the governance, then the audit committees can now resonate. Right now, audit committee is a new concept. Those in charge of governance, they are unstructured, so I don't think there is a synergy in the way these two organs are supposed
to be working.
So it will be a good effort in that area.
To grow that area.
Yes.
And panelists, I'm going to ask you, we lost a bit of time because of the technical glitches, but we can't leave this session today without at least attending to at least one or two questions from the Q&A. And I'll just pick two. I have one question from Herbert Zake, and I think I'll give that to you, Doreen. Herbert Zake would like to know, please comment on the membership of Board Audit Committee, who qualifies to be a member, who shouldn't be a member, and can a Board Committee member serve on other committees? I think just give us a brief answer to that, so that we can also give the opportunity for another question to be handled. Over to you, Doreen.
Okay, interesting question there, and thank you so much, Herbert, for the question. So, pretty much I will answer the question from the membership perspective of the audit committees. Ideally, looking at the responsibility that we've been discussing for audit committees, it is important that whoever sits on the audit committee has what it takes to actually be there, in terms of skill set, in terms of the industry that the audit committee member is serving. For example, if I pick it from the energy perspective, it would be good to have somebody on the audit committee who understands the business of the energy sector. But we have been speaking about oversight responsibility for financial reporting. So it would be good to have somebody who understands the finances, the finance aspects. Then we have discussed lots about technology. and aspects of digital transformation, cybersecurity, people hacking into systems that they are not supposed to be hacking. All those issues get into the audit committee through the audit reports. So it would also be helpful to have somebody who is technology savvy, I should say. And in terms of numbers, probably not so many. I have seen a number of audit committee terms of reference and charters, and it's usually an odd number, minimum of 3 or 5 or thereabout, because again, if the number is too big, then the conversation take long and the value add will be less, but that will depend on the organization. So the criteria is basically you need to have somebody who is ready to take on the challenge in such a dynamic environment and not just filling the space for the sake of it.
Thank you, Doreen. I will take another question from a female participant on the call, and I'll give this to you, Samson. We have a question from Hajat Sebiala. She says, you seem to suggest that board should have a separate audit committee and a separate risk committee. I think this is drawing from the insights from Gertrude. What is the problem of having it as one audit and risk committee? I'll give you that to handle.
Yeah, first of all, probably the problem will depend, first of all, in case it's a combination of both audit and risk committee, the maturity of that committee in distinguishing the boundaries between risk management issues and audit work issues. There is a risk that for those who have a separation, there is a risk that members of the committee might lean more on audit what issues, thinking that the issues covered in the audit reports primarily about risks, but that may not be able to ensure the maximum understanding and the separation of these issues so that they are managed. The second concern is, of course, the way management seems to be a little bit allergic to audit queries. They might run away from risk management if it is seen from audit point of what? View. So to me, risk management is a responsibility of the managers. And therefore we need to have that dichotomy cut out clearly so that it is paid the most critical attention necessary, because if we combine the committees, we cause that necessary separation to lead to perhaps undesirable results. So it is very, very important to separate them. Of course, people rationalize that manpower and so on, but may I argue that we should have, for instance, and on the governance side, we can have a risk committee so that it toes the second line of defense and oversee the risk management function and those who are working in it. Okay? And for us in the public sector, that's more to do with the future, especially in central ministries and so on. But in some agencies, I can see the risk management function being developed, which is okay. I go for separation here.
Yeah, and I think that what you've said also resonates with what somebody has said on the chat. Somebody said on the chat that ideally audit is post-mortem, but risk is futuristic, it's proactive, it's looking ahead before the problems come.
True.
Yeah, so that's something we could consider. I want to advise those on the chat, those on the call, that we have a Q&A section, and we also have the main chat. So I'm going to, we're handling the questions that actually in the Q&A section, we might not be able to go through the entire chat. We have one question that I want to give to you. I think it's from a training and development point of view that I want to give to you, James. It's from a training and development point of view. Somebody here is asking, what course of study has to be undertaken in order to become an audit, to have a career in audit? What's the course of study?
Okay, thank you very much, Eva, for that, and the person who asked the question. Yeah, a career in audit, if you really want to become an auditor, a real 311 auditor, if we used to call it in school, then it means you can start with a business kind of either diploma or degree. Could be a Uganda diploma, the diploma in business studies, what I used to know. You can do a Bachelor of Commerce or Bachelor of Business Administration. If you toe that line, you're already preparing yourself to become an accountant and to become an auditor. But of course, in the real practice, we would expect if you really want to pursue a career in auditing, to pursue professional training in accountancy, which means you should undertake certified public accountancy examinations, either of Uganda, of Kenya, of any other country, or there is also Association of Certified, Chartered Certified Accountants. So if you take that line, then you have to do professional accountancy training. That is to become an auditor. But what I wanted to add quickly is that I'm not saying that to sit in the audit committee you must be a qualified accountant, a professional accountant. Like, you remember what Doreen mentioned, that if you're in the energy sector, you will need somebody with experience in the energy sector to sit in the committee. So it brings a technical knowledge of energy. If you these days you even have to think about, like she talked about, a tech savvy person. You may want to have somebody from an ICT background in the committee who brings that knowledge of IT issues. We were talking about cybersecurity, we were talking about social media policies and so forth. So such a person will understand those kind of things. But in most regulated spaces like banks, for example, and insurance companies, they will say really the chairperson of the committee should have an accounting background. Yes, because that helps. Because when you talk about those financial reports and governance and those issues around internal controls, you need some understanding of accounting for you to be able to operate. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I think there was a question like, if you are in audit, can you be in another committee? Well, in the banking sector, for example, where I sit, when I sit in the board of a bank, I'm a chairperson of the committee. The rules from Bank of Uganda say that I cannot sit in any other committee as a chairperson. I can only sit in the audit committee. So that's really what happens in the financial services sector. But if you are just a member of the committee, you may sit in another committee. But if you are the chairperson, you cannot be allowed to be chair of another committee, because they really expect you to drive the function with a lot of objectivity and independence, and being detached from other decisions that are being given to management to implement.
Yeah. So those are the standards that would be set by the regulator for that particular field.
Yes, for that particular industry.
Just one more that I want Doreen to sort of wrap up and close for us before we go into the closing remarks, given the time that we have. Somebody here on the Q&A has raised something. He says, wouldn't it, CPA Fred Ahindisiwe, thank you Fred, he says, wouldn't it be better to have internal audit committee that is independent of the board as such, or selected from board members, like in the case for cooperative industry? I think he's coming from the cooperative industry. Not very clear, but I think what he's asking, wouldn't it be better to have an internal audit committee that is independent of the board? I don't know how that would fit into governance structure, but it doesn't really make sense. Maybe you can try and make some sense of it.
Okay, thank you so much, CPA Fred, for the question. And before I go into that, probably I'll also just add a little bit to what James said in terms of the skill set of auditors. So in the finance stream, we have a number of sections. We have the accountants, we have the auditors, and even the auditors have internal auditors and external auditors. So if somebody is towing the line of external audit, going the accountancy way or going the finance way is the best way to go. And also in the regulation, for example, in Uganda, for you to head internal audit function or internal audit function or a finance department, you have to be a certified public accountant in Uganda, which is the right thing to do. However, if you're operating in the internal audit space, there is room for variability depending on the industry that you're in. I am in the energy sector, so on my team of internal auditors, I have accountants, I have electrical engineers, and I also have IT technocrats. I will not speak so much to IT because we have discussed technology to a great extent in this conversation. But I need the electrical engineers to interrogate the network for me because if I only have accountants, then it becomes difficult. If you go to a medical field, then you'll probably need some medics on the internal audit team to actually speak to the business that you're in. So there is that room depending on which line you want to tow, whether you want to go internal audit or external audit. So having a separate internal audit committee separate from the board, at the end of the day, internal auditors are ears and eyes on ground for the board of directors. So if internal auditors are eyes and ears on ground for the board of directors, then it is expected that you're going to report to the board of directors through the audit committee. Unless this organization really has lots of resources, which is a bit rare in times like this, maybe at that point you would call for a separate audit committee, but I don't find it necessary. If you have an audit committee that is properly composed, that has the right expertise on board, then that team should be in position to work very closely with the internal auditor, the external auditor, compliance officers, legal officers, and risk experts, just in case you don't have a separate risk management function. So unless it is really, really necessary and called for, usually it is one audit committee that considers all that. Okay. But if there is justification and the organization is really large and probably the agenda of the general audit committee is too big to address the issues of internal audit, maybe, but again you want the issues from the internal audit report to be consolidated or looked at together with the rest of the issues within the organization. So that synergy will be important if you have one audit committee. Okay.
Thank you, Doreen. And as we draw to a close, of this webinar that we've had today, I want to remind those on the call that the League of East African Directors, where each one of us seated here is a member, is dedicated to growing and empowering boards, and also having specific committee programs. And this is just one of the programs. Today we are looking at board audit committees, but there is more to come that we'll definitely talk about. I'm now going to give our panelists just 2 minutes each to wrap up, and of course James, you'll come last because yours of course is as a partner, HLB Jim Roberts as a partner of these programs. But I'll start with you, Samson. Samson, let's have some of your closing shots in 2 minutes or under.
Yeah, for me, I'm very happy with this new journey in terms of the strategic alliance that we are having. Like I said in the beginning, good governance is a strategic resource to the public sector. It's one area which has been grey and we want to brighten it well, so that the public sector institutions are able to utilize the resources as they pursue the strategic objectives they are pursuing in a manner that is acceptable, accountable, and frugal, because there is a lot of public outcry regarding the utilization of these resources. So we really need to govern better in terms of economic policy management. If a country has good governance across, the economy also does well. That's why we find it very, very, very lucrative for us to associate with this platform that you have invented for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Samson. Thank you, Samson. Parting shots from you, Doreen.
Yeah, thank you, Eva. It's been a pleasure to participate in this panel discussion. And what I can say is it's prestigious to be a member of the board, and at that to be a member of the audit committee. However, gone are the days when prestige and allowances that you take from being a board member becomes a driving force. The environment that we are operating in is very dynamic. It is changing at a rapid speed. And just like somebody was saying today in the earlier conversations I was having, is the change is exponential. So if you respond from a linear perspective, you'll not be able to actually catch up. So my parting thoughts to all of us who are members of the board and who are members of the audit committee is that it is important to do a continuous assessment of the organizations where we are board members and committee members, to ensure that we have the right caliber of people on board, because it is the people that actually do the work that translates into the financial statements and everything else. It is important to do a continuous assessment to check that we have strong systems, we have proper processes in place, and that we have the right technologies, and we have the right strategies to take us to the future. Because where we are at, the role of the board and the role of the audit committee is oversight, but it is also planning. So guiding our organizations, guiding the CSUT into a future that is going to keep us competitive and remaining valuable to the communities where our organizations serve is critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. I want to go to James. And James, for me, my question for you is specific. Yeah. We've had the parting shots from them. Yeah. But my question for you is specific. Now that we have launched the Board Audit Committee Perspectives Program, what's next? What should we look out for? What should we look forward to?
Thank you very much, Eva. Yes, this has been a milestone. We've been planning for this for some months. I'm happy that it has come to reality. This was the first important baby step to launch this program, and I want to take this opportunity to thank all the partners involved in this process. HLB Jim Roberts, where I come from, but also League of East African Directors, which is really mandated to make sure that businesses are well led in East Africa. In this process, we are also working on bringing on board many partners, because the issues of governance cannot be adequately handled by only League of East African Directors and HLB Jim Roberts. So we are talking with the Ministry of Finance. That's why we have here Samson Sowate, the Commissioner Internal Audit responsible for forensic and risk advisory. So we are talking with government as well, because what has been happening is that in the private sector we are running, but we are not talking to our fellow audit committee members in the public sector. So this platform is really going to give us a space where we can be together. So we expect more collaboration. We have also reached out to the Institute of Certified Public Accountants. We have reached out to the Institute of Internal Auditors, where Doreen comes from. We want them to be key partners, because these programs, we want the next programs to be accredited by those institutions to get continuous professional development units, so that when you attend this program as an accountant, you are taken to have learned. So that's the direction we are taking. So we have other partners on board who are supporting this process, and of course there are others like the CEO Summit we're working with, and so forth. So it's about partnerships, it's about putting our hands together. That's the first thing. The other one is about, these are going to be quarterly webinars. This is the first one. We'll have the next one after 3 months, and so forth. So this will be in the calendar of the League of East African Directors. So we'll be having this on a regular basis. But I think the webinars are good in terms of bringing us together, sharing experiences and so forth. But there will also be a program that we are already developing, a program for detailed capacity building. You can call it a training program. So we want to have, as League of East African Directors working with HLB Jim Roberts, we are going to organize short-term courses, which we shall be using short-term courses, which we can then be delivering to people who are serving in the audit committees or who intend to serve in the audit committees. So that's going to be the next step. After that, after we've got the capacity building programs running, or call it training, some people won't call them training programs. It could be a 3-day, half day for 3 days, but something which will give some value to the serving auditors, members of audit committees. The next level will be coaching and mentoring, because after you've created awareness, you've done detailed training, then the next thing is how do you handhold these people in terms of mentorship? Because amongst us here, even on the call, you'll see that there are some people who have served in audit committees for 20 years. And these people have a wealth of experience. They could work with the younger people who are entering in the audit committees or board leaderships and guide them through the process. I think that would be very beneficial. We have even seen cases where Stanbic, I think, has experimented what they call reverse mentoring. We could also learn from the younger generation. So having these sessions will help a lot. So coaching and mentoring will be built into it. Within LEAD, we are fortunate. We have members who are professional coaches. I'm personally a professional certified coach. So I can play in that space as well to give coaching services to our colleagues to make sure that we improve generally the level of governance in our institutions. So those are the things which should be coming. And of course, like moderator, you said earlier, this is just the first specific committee we are looking at. But we'll also be going to look at what about risk committees? What kind of conversation should they be having? And this should help, even if somebody has not yet entered the boardroom as a member, they should start getting a feel of, if I'm appointed in the risk committee, what should I be?
And just to follow through on that conversation, please allow me, James.
Yes.
Time is not on our side. I would like to invite the CEO, she's on call.
Okay.
CEO of League of East African Directors, Ms. Fiona Nabasa-Wall, to just, give more insights on what the future is for board, continuing board committee education.
Maybe give me a minute later. There's one thing I didn't.
And just allow me to let her in because we have the clock running on us.
Okay.
Fiona, we were not able to be with you in the initially when we were starting, but please come on and come on the call and just give us some direction on where this is going next. Over to you, Fiona. Okay, maybe as Fiona comes on, we'll just give you the opportunity to wrap up with that one item, and then we can hand over to Fiona to give us a close.
The last item I wanted to mention is that in order to keep the conversation going, we're not going to wait for 3 months without saying anything to each other. So we're at HLB Jim Roberts, we're launching what we call the HLB Jim Roberts Business Insights. Okay. It is it's an e-magazine which is going to be available to all the people on the view, those who are playing, especially in this space of governance and other areas as well that we cover as accountants. So the HLB Business Insights is already the first edition. I want to take this opportunity to launch it publicly. That will be available after this call, and we put your email on the chat media, and then we can be able to send you a copy. It will be available, and this will be done on a monthly basis so that people can converse and talk about these things continuously. Yeah, so the magazine is going to be available. I want to thank those who made contributions to the first edition. There were a lot of contributions which came in, articles, thought leadership kind of articles, and other materials from other partners and also our clients. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Fiona, are we ready for Fiona? Fiona is joining us off-site via Zoom. Okay, we seem... Okay, maybe as we wait for Fiona, just to wrap up in our very last few minutes, I would like us to reflect on the discussions that we've had today, how board oversight has evolved. And I think that we must be cognizant of the fact that this evolution has not only been in the private sector, but also in the public sector. Somebody posted a question in the chat and said, and asked about why as government entities, okay, Fiona is speaking.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Eva. Thank you so much, fantastic panelists. We're very proud that this has gone well despite the technological glitches. We've had some really serious insights. I loved seeing all the quotes in the chat session. I want to thank everybody who's been around, and I want to let you know that we shall continue making such partnerships in order to grow our board committees, our directors' capabilities, and also keep everybody else in line with the trends. I'm really here just to invite you for one of the most exciting events of the year, which is the LEAD Convention 2023. It will take place on the 27th of July 2023, and it will be in the morning at the Kampala Serena Hotel starting at 7:30 a.m. I want to thank all our sponsors. We have exciting sponsors like Uganda Breweries Limited, NSSF, and we have many others coming on board. I want to also state that it will be an exciting event. We are going to be looking at governance and resilience in a regulatory environment that's quite dynamic. And one of the things we're going to have there that's exciting is the Bank of Uganda, Deputy Governor, who will be talking about what has changed in regulation, what is the impact of regulation, how do regulators do it, do they consult before they make these changes that make huge changes in the board. But we're also going to talk to those that are regulated, and we're going to be listening from banks to telecoms, to private sector, government, and we're going to have a very serious discussion on how to manage all the threats in the VUCA era. I want to thank you all and let you know that for this you can buy a table for your board of directors at $1,200 or an individual ticket at $80. Thank you very much, and that's all I was here for. And I also want to thank Smart24 TV for this partnership, HL Jim Roberts. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much from the different offices that you've come from. Thank you for giving us of your knowledge and wisdom. And again, thank you to our board director who've been panelists. I'm really, really excited with what we've launched today.
That made it to this call. Thank you very much, HLB Jim Roberts, for leading on this discussion, and thank you very much, lead of East African Directors. To those on the call, please look forward to more exciting webinars. This is just the first, and there is more content coming. Thank you, and have a good evening.